The self-made man wins status before he gets support because people do not invest in who you say you are becoming. They judge the evidence in front of them. That is why your family keeps seeing your past, your friends keep measuring your current rank, and society treats your ambition like noise until it produces a signal. The false belief is that support comes from being understood. It does not. Most support comes when ignoring you starts to feel expensive. But the trap is not to become bitter, loud, or desperate to prove everyone wrong. That still makes them the center. The stronger move is colder. Build private discipline. Create visible proof. Control your money. Document competence. Stop performing struggle. Let your results change the risk of dismissing you. Because status is not claimed, it is signaled. And the unsupported man must learn the 7 laws that turn proof into rank. Rockefeller did not begin with an empire. His first proof was bookkeeping competence. Carnegie did not begin with status. His first proof was becoming useful inside the telegraph system. Howard Schultz did not begin with prestige. His proof was learning how to sell, operate, and build a vision people could see. Different men, same law. Support did not come first. Observable competence came first. Here is the question most men avoid. Why do some men receive belief early, while other men have to fight for every inch of recognition? The naive answer is luck. The emotional answer is unfairness. The Machiavellian answer is colder. People support what already looks like power. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand." That sentence explains more about status than most motivational speeches. People do not usually judge your hidden discipline. They do not judge the pain you swallowed alone. They do not judge the nights when you stayed awake thinking about the man you might become. They judge signals. They judge evidence. They judge what has become visible enough to enter their calculation. This is why explaining yourself usually feels weak after a while. At first you think you are clarifying your vision. Then you realize you are repeating yourself to people who still see the old version of you. Your family remembers your mistakes. Your friends remember your rank. Your environment remembers your current limits. The market remembers nothing except what you can prove. If you do not understand this, you will waste years trying to be understood by people who are not qualified to measure your future. You will call it communication. It is not. Sometimes explanation is just permission seeking with better grammar. You will tell your family about your ambition, but they will remember the younger version of you who lacked money, discipline, consistency, and direction. You will tell your friends about your plan, but they will measure you against your current position in the group. You will tell the market you are valuable, but the market will ask one question: where is the proof? And if you have none, your ambition becomes background noise. The cost is not emotional discomfort. The cost is lost years, weak status, low optionality, financial dependence, invisible effort, missed rooms, missed introductions, missed respect, missed Lizreft. The cost is becoming a man with explanations instead of evidence. A man with no visible proof is not treated as dangerous. He is treated as potential. And potential is cheap until it becomes evidence. Look at John D. Rockefeller. Before he became the world's first dollar billionaire, he was not born into the status he later commanded. PBS records that at 16, Rockefeller searched for work in Cleveland and finally became an assistant bookkeeper at Hewitt & Tuttle. The Rockefeller Archive Center also notes that he completed a 6-month business course in 3 months before taking that assistant bookkeeper role. No empire, no public authority, no industrial throne. Just pressure. But pressure alone does not create status. Pressure only exposes what a man does with difficulty. Rockefeller turned pressure into competence. He learned numbers, accounts, trade, discipline, control, commercial reality. His first proof was not a speech about greatness. His first proof was the ability to become trusted with money and order. That is where status begins for the unsupported man. Not with applause, with usefulness, not with support, with evidence. Now look at Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie arrived in America as a poor Scottish immigrant. At 13, he worked as a bobbin boy in a cotton mill, earning $1.20 per week. Then he became a telegraph messenger, taught himself how to use the equipment, and later became a telegraph operator. Again, no inherited platform. No elite introduction, no comfortable beginning. Poverty, immigrant status, exhausting work, low rank. But Carnegie attached himself to a valuable system. He learned the communication technology of his era. He became useful where speed, information, and reliability mattered. His proof was not that he wanted a better life. Every poor man wants a better life. His proof was that he could become visibly useful inside a machine that rewarded competence. That is the part most men miss. The world does not reward desire. It rewards demonstrated capacity. And Howard Schultz gives the modern version. The Schultz Family Foundation says Schultz grew up in public housing in Brooklyn and was the first in his family to graduate college. Forbes notes that he later took charge of Starbucks in the 1980s and turned it from a regional coffee company into one of the world's top brands. His origin did not give him automatic status. It gave him pressure. But pressure became useful only when it was converted into sales, communication, branding, customer experience, operational vision, and the ability to make other people believe in something they could actually see. The lesson is not that every man becomes Rockefeller, Carnegie, or Schultz. That is fantasy. The lesson is colder and more useful. Origin may explain pressure, but proof changes perception. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are." The unsupported man must understand that line without becoming bitter. People may love you and still misread you. People may know you and still underestimate you. People may care about you and still judge your future through your past. That is not always evil. It is human nature. Familiar people rarely see your transformation until the evidence becomes too loud to ignore. And this brings us to Law 1. Familiar people judge your future through your past. Your family remembers your old identity. Your friends remember your old patterns. Your environment remembers your current rank. So when you speak about a bigger future, they do not hear strategy. They hear fantasy spoken by the old version of you. This is why explaining more often makes things worse. Every explanation gives them more material to judge, but no new evidence to respect. You think you are helping them understand. But in their mind, you are still the same man using bigger words. You say you are building something. They remember when you quit. You say you are disciplined now. They remember when you were inconsistent. You say you are becoming valuable. They look at your bank account, your body, your schedule, your room, your circle, your habits, and your results. That is not cruelty. That is perception using available evidence. The weak man becomes resentful here. He says, "They never believed in me." He turns every doubter into a villain. He makes his family the enemy. He makes his friends the enemy. He makes society the enemy. And because he needs an enemy, he keeps them at the center of his life. The strategic man does something colder. He does not argue with their memory. He builds a counterweight, a portfolio, a skill, a savings number, a client result, a body transformation, a public body of work, a reputation signal, a before and after that cannot be dismissed. Do not fight their memory. Outproduce it, because the only way to kill an old identity is to create enough evidence that continuing to believe in it becomes irrational. This is where many men fail. They want emotional justice before strategic proof. They want the apology before the result. They want recognition before the signal. They want people to say, "I see who you are becoming," before they have built anything visible enough to be seen. But status does not care about the story inside your head. Status asks what can be observed. This leads to law 2. Status is not claimed. It is signaled. Status is communicated before you speak. It is in your consistency, your calmness, your money control, your boundaries, your competence, your reputation, and your ability to walk away. This is why a loud man with no leverage looks desperate, and a quiet man with proof feels dangerous. A desperate man has to announce himself because his evidence is weak. He tells people how hard he works. He tells people what he is going to become. He tells people who doubted him. He tells people how misunderstood he is. But every announcement without proof creates a small status leak. It reveals that he still needs the room to confirm him. A man with signals does not need to announce as much. His calendar announces discipline. His body announces self-command. His savings announce restraint. His portfolio announces competence. His reputation announces consistency. His boundaries announce that he is not starving for access. His ability to walk away announces leverage. Machiavelli wrote that one judges by the result. That line is merciless. It means your intention will not save you. Your pain will not rank you. Your explanation will not crown you. The result becomes the social evidence. That does not mean morality does not matter. It means perception moves through evidence before it moves through empathy. You may be a good man, but if your life has no structure, people will still read disorder. You may be talented, but if your talent has no demonstration, people will still read potential. You may be ambitious, but if your ambition has no output, people will still read noise. This is why hidden value is dangerous. Not because it is worthless, but because the world often treats hidden value as non-existent value. A disciplined man who never documents his competence can remain invisible. A skilled man who never shows his work can remain underpaid. A serious man who keeps explaining but never signals progress can remain trapped in the same social rank. And this is where the unsupported man must stop asking for belief and start designing signals. Not fake signals, not rented luxury, not loud performance, not status theater. Real signals, the kind built from repeated action, the kind that survives when you are not in the room, the kind that makes someone say, "I may not understand him, but I can no longer dismiss him." Before we go deeper, hear this carefully. If you are serious about discipline, leverage, proof, positioning, and self-command, there is a private level where I break these frameworks down with more force and less compression. It is not for men who want comfort, excuses, or motivational noise. It is for men who understand that their hidden problem is not lack of desire, but lack of structure, evidence, and strategic execution. Inside Patreon, the work goes deeper into proof systems, positioning, discipline, leverage, and the private architecture behind becoming difficult to dismiss. The decision is yours. Now understand the next problem. A signal that is not backed by discipline becomes theater. So we arrive at Law 3. Build private discipline before public dominance. A man who cannot keep promises to himself cannot sustain public proof. You want respect from the world, but you still negotiate with your alarm clock. You want wealth, but your spending leaks control. You want to be seen as serious, but your week has no structure. You want to become undeniable, but you still need motivation before execution. That contradiction destroys self-trust. And when self-trust dies, public ambition becomes performance. The first kingdom is private. Your room, your calendar, Your body, your money, your attention, your evening after work, your repeated skill reps when nobody is watching. This is where the unsupported man either becomes real or remains theatrical, because no one is coming to supervise your transformation. No one is coming to clap for your private discipline. No one is coming to rescue the hours you waste after work. No one is coming to make your environment sacred. No one is coming to force you to stop leaking money, focus, energy, and self-respect. Unsupported men often say they are alone. But solitude is not automatically power. Solitude without structure becomes rumination. Solitude without standards becomes decay. Solitude without output becomes a private prison where a man keeps imagining greatness while producing nothing visible enough to change his rank. Isolation becomes discipline only when you impose order on it. Discipline becomes skill only when it is repeated long enough to compound. Skill becomes proof only when it produces measurable output. Proof becomes leverage only when it is visible and useful. Leverage becomes money, power, and freedom only when it gives you alternatives. That is the chain. Most men break it at the beginning. They want leverage without skill. They want proof without discipline. They want respect without consistency. They want freedom without money control. They want support before becoming useful. They want the world to believe a version of them that their own daily behavior does not yet confirm. Private discipline is where the self-made man earns the right to believe himself first. Because before the world doubts you, you often already doubt yourself. You know when your routine is weak. You know when your output is inconsistent. You know when your standards collapse the moment nobody is watching. You know when your ambition is partly real and partly compensation. And that private knowledge follows you. It enters your voice. It enters your posture. It enters your decisions. A man who betrays himself repeatedly speaks with a hidden weakness even when his words sound strong. He may say all the right things, but something inside him knows he has not built the evidence yet. So build the evidence privately first. Wake when you said you would wake. Train when you said you would train. Save when you said you would save. Study when you said you would study. Practice the skill when no one is impressed. Measure the output when no one is watching. Most compound interest calculators show you a dream number. A serious man needs reality, not fantasy. Use the free calculator in the description to see your contributions, growth, inflation, taxes, fees, and what delay can cost your future. It will show whether your future freedom is being built by numbers or imagined by emotion. Money control matters because poverty of structure becomes poverty of options. If you cannot control your spending, you cannot build savings. If you cannot build savings, you cannot breathe. If you cannot breathe, you negotiate from fear. And when a man negotiates from fear, he accepts rooms, roles, relationships, and offers that keep him low. This is why private discipline is not a motivational topic. It is status infrastructure. Your body is infrastructure. Your savings are infrastructure. Your skill reps are infrastructure. Your emotional restraint is infrastructure. Your schedule is infrastructure. Your ability to stay silent while building is infrastructure. Public dominance without private discipline is theater, and theater collapses under pressure. But private discipline creates a new problem. If nobody can see it, nobody can rank it. You can become stronger in private and still remain invisible in public. You can work for months and still be treated as the old version of yourself. You can develop competence and still be ignored if that competence leaves no trace. That is the next law the unsupported man must master. Because hidden discipline may build the man, but visible proof changes the room. That is Law 4. Create a visible trail of competence. Hidden value is often treated as non-existent value. That may offend your ego, but it should sharpen your strategy. Because if the world cannot see what you are building, it will keep ranking you by what it already knows. If your family cannot see new evidence, they will keep using old evidence. If your friends cannot see new discipline, they will keep measuring you by old patterns. If the market cannot see your skill, it will keep pricing you like ordinary labor. This is not a complaint, this is a map. Stop hiding your work, not by bragging, by documenting. A serious man does not need to scream that he is improving. He needs a trail that proves improvement happened. One project completed, one case study written, one skill demonstrated, one testimonial captured, one result measured, one public analysis published, one before and after made visible, 1 month of progress logged. This is how invisible effort becomes social evidence. Most men misunderstand visibility. They think visibility means showing off. They think documentation means vanity. They think public proof means becoming loud, desperate, or performative. That is why they stay hidden. They confuse privacy with power. But privacy without proof can become a prison. The world does not need access to your entire soul. It needs evidence of competence. If you are learning a skill, show the result of the skill. If you are building a business, show the offer, the problem, the process, the case study, the lesson, the improvement. If you are transforming your body, show the standard, the discipline, the before and after. If you are rebuilding financially, track the debt reduction, the savings milestone, the spending discipline, the new income stream. If you are becoming a sharper thinker, publish your analysis. If you are becoming valuable, leave a trail that makes your value legible. The unsupported man does not need to become legible. He needs to become legible. Legible means people can understand what you do, what you can solve, what you have built, what has changed, and why your presence has value. A man can suffer silently for years and still have no leverage. A man can work hard in private and still be overlooked. A man can be talented and still be underpaid if no one can see the talent, measure the talent, trust the talent, or connect the talent to a result. This is why effort alone is not enough. Effort must become output. Output must become proof. Proof must become reputation. Reputation must become leverage. The chain must continue. If it breaks at any point, your ambition remains trapped inside your own head. Rockefeller became useful inside the machinery of money because he could handle accounts, numbers, order, and commercial reality. Carnegie became useful inside the machinery of communication because he learned telegraphy and made himself valuable in a system that needed speed and reliability. Schultz became useful inside the machinery of modern consumer experience because he could sell, operate, brand, and turn a regional coffee company into a visible global signal. They were not merely ambitious. They became readable to the world through competence. That is the part you must steal. Not their exact industry, not their exact path, not their biography. Steal the law. Find a valuable system. Build competence inside it. Create proof that can be seen without needing you to explain your entire life story. Because if your proof depends on your speech, it is still weak. Strong proof survives without you. A portfolio works when you are not present. A case study works when you are not present. A recommendation works when you are not present. A savings milestone works when you are not present. A public body of work works when you are not present. A reputation works when you are not present. That is why proof is stronger than explanation. Explanation dies when you stop speaking. Evidence keeps talking. And when evidence keeps talking long enough, People begin to update their judgment. But here is where many unsupported men lose power. They finally start building, but then they poison their proof with emotional performance. That brings us to Law 5. Stop performing struggle. This is where many men destroy their own status. They want people to know how hard it has been, how alone they felt, how much nobody helped, how many nights they suffered, how many people doubted them, how much pressure they carried. The emotion is understandable, but the strategy is weak. Pain is not proof. Pain is context. Proof is currency. Your struggle may explain why you are tired, but it does not automatically explain why you deserve opportunity. The market does not pay for what you survived. It pays for what you can solve. People do not respect suffering by itself. They respect the transformation of suffering into skill, leverage, restraint, output, and results. This is a cruel sentence, but it can free you. Your pain does not become powerful because it happened. It becomes powerful only when it produces something: a stronger body, a sharper mind, a better offer, a cleaner bank account, a visible skill, a controlled temperament, a proof asset that lives outside your mouth. The resentful man keeps presenting his wound like an invoice. He believes the world owes him payment because he suffered. He wants recognition for endurance, not for outcome. He wants people to say, "You had it harder, so you deserve more." But status rarely moves that way. In the real world, suffering without transformation often lowers perception. It can make people pity you, advise you, control you, avoid you, or quietly rank you as unstable. That does not mean your pain is meaningless. It means your pain is not a strategy until it has been converted. This is why the self-made man must become careful with his story. Tell your story only when it serves the proof. Do not use pain to beg for sympathy. Use pain to explain the forge. If you speak about being unsupported, connect it to the discipline it created. If you speak about poverty, connect it to money control. If you speak about doubt, connect it to execution. If you speak about loneliness, connect it to focus. If you speak about rejection, connect it to skill. If you speak about pressure, connect it to structure. Never let the wound be the final point. The final point must be what the wound produced. That is how a man keeps dignity while revealing hardship. He does not say, "Look how much I suffered." He says, "Look what the suffering was converted into." That is a different signal. One lowers status, the other builds it. You must understand this because the unsupported man is often tempted to make his struggle public too early. He wants witnesses before he has results. He wants people to see the battle while the battle is still chaotic. But if the battle is not yet producing proof, public struggle can become public weakness. There is a time to be silent and build. There is a time to document competence. There is a time to reveal the origin story. Do not confuse those stages. If you reveal the wound before the proof, people may see you as damaged. If you reveal the wound after the proof, people see the same wound as depth. This is why timing matters. The same story can lower you or elevate you, depending on whether proof stands beside it. So stop performing struggle. Make the struggle produce something. And once the struggle produces something, the social mechanism begins to change. That leads to Law 6. Make support a consequence, not a requirement. Weak men wait for support before they move. Strategic men move until support becomes optional. This is the reversal. You are not trying to convince people to support your beginning. You are trying to build enough momentum that support becomes attracted to your trajectory. People support movement. They support signals. They support men who look like they are already becoming expensive to ignore. This is not cynicism. This is incentives. A man with no direction attracts advice. A man with no proof attracts doubt. A man with no boundaries attracts control. A man with no visible progress attracts pity, lectures, or silence. But a man with visible progress attracts different treatment. Not always love, not always loyalty, not always fairness, but different treatment. Because ignoring him begins to feel like a bad calculation. That is the hidden mechanism. People are not only asking, "Do I believe in him?" They are asking, often unconsciously, "What does it cost me to ignore him if he keeps rising?" When your movement becomes visible, people begin to calculate differently. A friend who dismissed your business starts paying attention when customers appear. A family member who mocked your discipline becomes quieter when your body, money, and schedule change. A market that ignored your talent becomes interested when your case studies show results. A room that once overlooked you begins to notice when your reputation enters before you do. That does not mean you should build for their approval. That is still dependency. You build so their approval loses authority. Support becomes useful but not necessary. Recognition becomes pleasant but not required. Doubt becomes information, not identity. Rejection becomes feedback, not a verdict. This is the psychological shift. The old man says, "I cannot move because they do not support me." The self-made man says, "Because they do not support me, I cannot afford to remain unproven." That sentence changes everything. It removes your excuses. It removes your fantasy. It removes the emotional luxury of waiting to be chosen. You may not have support. Then you need structure. You may not have belief. Then you need evidence. You may not have a network. Then you need visible usefulness. You may not have money. Then you need money control, skill acquisition, and proof that can create better options. You may not have status. Then you need signals that slowly force rank to change. This is not glamorous. It is colder than motivation. But it works because it deals with reality instead of demanding reality become kinder. If you want the deeper private systems behind this, not the public motivation, but the mechanisms of proof, positioning, discipline, leverage, money control, and self-command, Patreon is where I break them down without softening the edge. It is not for passive viewers collecting ideas. It is for men willing to confront the cost of staying unchanged and build evidence in a structured way. If you are still waiting for someone to believe in you before you move, it will not help you. If you are ready to turn abandonment into structure and structure into leverage, the door is there. The decision is yours. Now we reach the final law, the one most men want too early. Law 7. Become sovereign enough to refuse low-status offers. The final status law is refusal. Until you can refuse, you are not sovereign. If you cannot refuse disrespect, you are still dependent. If you cannot refuse underpaid work, you are still trapped. If you cannot refuse bad friends, you are still socially owned. If you cannot refuse family pressure, you are still emotionally governed by old authority. But refusal requires leverage. Leverage requires proof. Proof requires discipline. Discipline requires self-command. This is why the self-made man starts small and cold. He builds savings so he can breathe. He builds skill so he can negotiate. He builds reputation so opportunity can find him. He builds visible proof so he is not asking to be believed. He builds alternatives so he is not forced to accept disrespect. Most men want the feeling of sovereignty before they build the structure of sovereignty. They say they are independent, but one emergency would break them. They say they do not care what people think, but one comment ruins their mood. They say they are done with disrespect, but they keep returning to the same rooms because they have no alternatives. They say they want freedom, but their habits keep them economically and emotionally owned. Sovereignty is not a mood. It is a structure. A man is not free because he speaks like he is free. He is free to the degree that his life gives him options. Options come from proof. Options come from money control. Options come from skill. Options come from reputation. Options come from emotional restraint. Options come from the ability to leave without collapsing. This is why the unsupported man cannot afford fantasy. He cannot afford to treat discipline like an aesthetic. He cannot afford to confuse anger with power. He cannot afford to mistake isolation for sovereignty. He cannot afford to wait for people to understand him before he becomes useful, visible, and hard to replace. The game is too expensive for that. If you cannot refuse, people can price you low. If you cannot leave, people can pressure you. If you cannot prove, people can doubt you. If you cannot regulate your emotion, people can move you. If you cannot build alternatives, people can own your choices without owning your name. This is the cold reason proof matters. Proof is not only about being admired. Proof is about escape. It gives you leverage. It gives you room to negotiate. It gives you a reason to be taken seriously. It gives you a way to exit low-status rooms without collapsing into panic. A savings account is not just money, it is breathing room. A skill is not just ability, it is bargaining power. A reputation is not just image, it is social credit. A portfolio is not just work, it is evidence that can travel. A boundary is not just a sentence. It is the visible edge of self-respect backed by consequences. Without consequences, boundaries become requests. Without leverage, refusal becomes theater. Without proof, confidence becomes noise. This is why the self-made man builds in the correct order. Self-command first, discipline second, skill third, proof fourth, visibility fifth, leverage sixth, refusal seventh. If you reverse the order, you become loud before you become strong. You demand respect before you have evidence. You cut people off before you have stability. You claim sovereignty while still needing everyone to approve, employ, invite, rescue, validate, or recognize you. That is not power. That is performance. The old identity says, "They do not support me, so I cannot move." The stronger identity says, "They do not support me, so I cannot afford to remain unproven." The old identity says, "They should understand my potential." The stronger identity says, "My potential is private. My proof must become public." The old identity says, "I need them to believe in me." The stronger identity says, "I need to become so disciplined, skilled, documented, and financially controlled that belief becomes irrelevant." This is the line that separates the resentful man from the self-made man. The resentful man makes doubters the center of his life. The self-made man makes proof the center of his life. He does not build to make them suffer. He builds so their opinion loses authority. He does not become cruel. He becomes controlled. He does not become loud. He becomes undeniable. And this is the correction many men need. You may be underestimated, but you may also be unproven. Stop confusing the two. That sentence should sting if it is true, because it removes the comfort of believing every doubt is jealousy. It removes the fantasy that every critic is threatened by you. It forces you to ask a sharper question. Have I actually built evidence? Not desire, not pain, not vision, evidence. A man who is truly underestimated has proof the world has not priced correctly yet. A man who is merely unproven has an identity. His results have not confirmed yet. Both situations feel painful, but they require different responses. If you are underestimated, Increase distribution. Make the proof more visible. Position it better. Put it in front of better rooms. Find people who can recognize value. If you are unproven, stop performing potential. Build the evidence. This is the real Machiavellian move. Not revenge, not begging, not emotional theater. Proof. Now the deeper question becomes this. What proof asset will change your rank first? Not your dream, not your pain, not your pain, not your pain, not your explanation. Your proof asset, a portfolio, a skill demonstration, a public project, a case study, a savings milestone, a client result, a body transformation, a reputation signal, a 90-day execution log. Pick one, not 10. 1. Because scattered ambition creates scattered evidence. A man trying to prove everything usually proves nothing. Choose the proof asset that attacks your weakest status signal. If people doubt your competence, build a project. If people doubt your consistency, build a 90-day log. If people doubt your discipline, transform your body and schedule. If people doubt your value in the market, create a case study. If people doubt your seriousness, control your money. If people doubt your direction, produce visible work around one chosen path. The move is not to explain your entire future. The move is to build the first piece of evidence that makes the old judgment outdated. Because the world will not keep listening to what you claim you are becoming. It will keep judging the evidence in front of it. And if that evidence is weak, your ambition will be treated like noise. So, comment the old identity you are done being judged by, not for applause, for confrontation. Write the identity you are killing, then choose the proof asset that will make it obsolete. Maybe it is the broke version. Maybe it is the inconsistent version. Maybe it is the invisible version. Maybe it is the dependent version. Maybe it is the man who keeps explaining himself because he has not built enough evidence to stop. Name it clearly, then build against it, because no support is not proof that you cannot win. It is proof that you cannot afford to remain dependent on belief. Stop asking to be understood by people who only respect signals after they become visible. Stop giving speeches to old memories. Stop performing struggle for rooms that cannot reward it. Stop waiting for someone to confirm the man you have not yet proven. Build private discipline. Create visible proof. Control your money. Document competence. Stop performing struggle. Make support a consequence. Become sovereign enough to refuse. Status is not claimed, it is signaled. And the unsupported man does not rise by begging the world to see his potential. He rises by building enough evidence that the world has to update its judgment. No support, no permission. Build anyway.